Hey y'all, this is Ashley. I am really excited because I just came back from Egypt. I am still jet lagged a bit. I've slept for about maybe 14 hours. And I'm starting to feel like myself again. So in Egypt, right now it is about 2 o'clock in Egypt. It would be about 8 p.m. there. So it was the time difference was also very different for me because I've never gone forward. I've always gone backward. So like to California, to Hawaii, things of that nature. So the time zone change from here to Egypt wasn't actually hard for me at all. Like it was no jet lag at all. I got there and we kind of hit the ground running. When we flew Air Canada, and we got the extra leg room in the front because it was such a long flight. So I think we flew for a total of 12 hours. It felt like a full 24 because when we left at 10 a.m. and then we arrived at 10 a.m. in Egypt the next day. Yeah. But the actual flight time, I believe, was about 12 hours. We had a layover in Canada, which was about 3 or 4 hours. And then when we got there, it was the morning time. So one of the first things I noticed in Egypt when I got there was all the houses looked like they was falling over, like literally. Like it looked like if I touched them, they would crumble. Yeah. Um, And I asked one of the tour guides there, just about like the Egyptian government and what was going on because like a lot of them hung out on the street, they hung out outside, they would sit. So you know how like in the hood, people sit on the stoop? It was kind of like that dynamic, but all of Cairo was like that, right? And then it was almost as if we went back in time. They had older cars. They did have Mercedes, but only in the like at the hotel. We stayed at the Four Seasons, which obviously is a 5-star experience. So, high class tourists are coming there. So that was the only time that we saw a Mercedes or some brand of car that we were familiar with when we went on the street. So I'm the type of person, when I travel anywhere, I'm going to go where the locals go. And we did a significant amount of research before we went. And so I kind of knew what to expect when I arrived. So what happened? So we're driving through, we're seeing like horse and buggy. We're seeing, hold on, sorry. The way that they let you know that they're going to move or make a turn, like they don't use turn signals, they honk. So all of Cairo is noise pollution, is loud, is people everywhere. So that was the first glimpse of Cairo. Inner city, just chaos, people everywhere. One of the things that I knew to expect it, but it didn't become abundantly clear until probably the last day I was there, was the amount of hassling that came. So, their Egyptian pound, let's see, 50 Egyptian pounds is about $3 US. So the difference in the calculation was different than what I'm familiar with, like let's say pesos, or even if you do the European pound, it's more. So like it's not a big deal when you're exchanging because you're like, oh, okay, it's worth more, it's not a big deal. But their Egyptian pound is significantly lower than our American dollar. But what was interesting is that they knew that and that they would exploit that fact. So like an example of that, we went to a store in Luxor, and my husband was like, well, let me find a soda. I want to get a soda. So we found a pastry shop and we went inside. All of the pastry looked weird. I won't get into the food yet. But then we went to the next store over and they showed us that they had these sodas. It was a amazingly delicious pineapple soda. It was sweet. It was made out of like barley. You could tell it was natural fruit, natural sweetener in it that we don't like, stuff we don't have here in America. But we walked in there, we're like, how much? They say 5 pesos. And then they talk to each other in Arabic. And then he said, oh no, my bad, 50 pesos. I meant 50 pesos. Right. So he noticed that we were American tourists and that he wasn't going to charge me what they charge each other. And they know that I have nothing to compare it to because we're English speaking. We don't understand their written language or anything. So we ran into a lot of that throughout our experience there. And that's the part that probably made it a little nerve-wracking, more so near the end than or in the beginning. Like the other thing that I thought was odd, and I kind of mentioned it to you, Bashima, they came out at night. So it was a lot of hustle and bustle during the day with normal hustle and bustle, but it was an extreme amount at night, like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. Their kids, they would be sitting outside picnicking in the McDonald's, like just random, like it was just bizarre how much time they spent out at night, to the point where we went to airports, I think 3 times in Egypt. The most crowded time we went to the airport was the time we had to go at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was crazy. So just culturally, it was interesting. They always seemed to support each other. It was a very supportive dynamic amongst each other. It didn't matter where you were. There was like this connection where they knew what their role, what their responsibility was, what their allegiance was to themselves. I asked a lot of questions about like the Egyptian government because it is an authoritative government. And what I've concluded, which may or may not be accurate, but what I feel like was happening is that everything is always in allegiance to their government. How can we support our economy for our government? Is it due to the prayer schedule? No interruptions. See, yep, I think so. I really think so. And especially on Friday, which is, I think, Ramadan, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. But on Friday, they did the 5-day prayer, and they were longer on Fridays, and, you know, in relation to that fact. So, and that was the least chaotic day out on the streets. When we would go out, we would walk around and things like that. Like not as many people would approach us, but there was always somebody to approach us. So one morning we got up, we were supposed to do the hot air balloon, and we didn't get to go. Juma, how you say it? And when we went out, it was only one person on the street, and that one person came up to us and they said, you know, can I, like, he wanted us to give him money for something. You need a taxi ride or something he was trying to give us. And I'm like, dude, you're the only person on the street today and you're still asking us for money. It's so crazy. So, and then the other piece of it was, so when we got there, we booked a van to take us to the hotel. And as soon as we got in the van, the guy who was like the American speaking, the English speaker, speaking person, there's always a driver and then the English translator person or the tour guide. There was always 2 of them. The driver could never speak English, and then the person they would send with us would be the translator, so to speak. And he sold us on this like Nile River cruise, which ended up being nice. But what I realized after the fact is they're always going to try and sell you something. They're always going to find a way to get your money. And they always, and even the language they use in order to get your money is, how can I get your money? Like they would literally ask you that. What can I do to get your money? You know, so he sold us on that. And then he told us like there was a basic package and a VIP package. And we really didn't understand the difference in the VIP package, but we're like, well, we can't get the like the less than subpar. Like he said, it was a buffet versus a plated dinner. And we're like, oh no, the buffet. Well, mind you, we done ate buffet throughout the rest of the week beyond that. So that didn't even matter. But and he knew that. But you know, so he sold us on that. He rode with us there. We listened to some music. It was a good experience in general, but not necessarily, probably overpaid for that, right? Oh, and then the tour guides were always in cahoots with all the people on the street too, because they do tours so regularly. So it wasn't until the last tour guide that we had where she said, she was like, look, I can't help you with bartering or finding a fair price for things in front of, you know, my friends. I can't do that because then they're going to be mad at me when I bring people on. right? So she was like, if you tell me what you want, and then when we go into the tour or whatever, I can tell you a fair price. And, it was just really unfortunate because we started to realize that after, I think, the second or third tour guide, that it was some sort of conversations, because looking at body language and things like that, you could kind of see that there was some sort of connection happening between the person that was trying to sell to you and the person that in them, so to speak. And so what we realized in one of the places that we were taken to is that the tour guides actually got a cut. So if we spent money, they would get a cut of whatever we spent because they overpriced it, right? So, and these are natural resources. We went to a papyrus shop where they showed us they broke down the papyrus, broke it down, put it in water, flattened it, and then made the paper, which is an ancient Egyptian paper that is almost indestructible. You can wet it, you can squeeze it, you can try and rip it, it won't do anything. Amazing, right? But then we go and they had these beautiful works of art on this papyrus, and they were selling this stuff for $775, thousands of dollars, right? And the friends that I'm with, I ain't balling like that, but the friends that I'm with, apparently they are. So they bought some of it. We found out probably 3 or 4 days later, you can get it for almost 20% of the price. It hurt. It hurt when we started figuring this out, right? And then we went into what they call a souk, or the bazaar, is probably what you'll hear it referred to. And essentially, there is almost like the flea market. And when you walk into the flea market, it's like they just come out of nowhere. They know you're Americans. They know you're going to spend money. They're literally standing outside of their store and they're like, come, friend. Me and my husband, we have locks, so they stay calling us Rasta. Come Rasta, trying to bring us into their store. And what they would do is almost try and trap you in the store until you spent money. And then the way that they would do it is they would offer you tea or they would offer you coffee and then tell you something like, this is our tradition. You can't turn this down. But essentially, while you're drinking the tea, they're trying to sell stuff. So they're trying to make you comfortable in their space in order to get you to buy something. And if you rejected it or if you didn't finish it, they would be offended. And then now you felt guilty. Like it was just all of these dynamics that they exploited and they took advantage of, amongst us in the group. And then some of my friends, they like to shop. They enjoy shopping like that. You know what I mean? Like really just wanted to spend their money. And, because of that, they were a little bit more susceptible to that exploitation, which was difficult. It was hard to convince, because it was 8 of us total. It was hard to convince the group collective to be firm in what is it yes or if it's no. If they offer you a price, don't accept the price at the first offer, cut it down by at least 75% and then meet them almost at the 50% mark, because it's probably even cheaper than that in consideration of the Egyptian pound in relation to the American dollar. So that like part of the culture was a little bit frustrating. Food. The food was okay. Let me caveat this by saying I'm not a huge fan of like Indian Arabic type food anyway, like just generally. Their seasonings aren't something that I gravitate to on a regular day. But if, I'm out with friends or whatever, I'll eat because that's what I'm gonna do. So we really love the kofta, which is like this beef stick of lamb mixed with beef, and it's like a skewer, and it looks literally is like this packed beef stick. That was really good. We went to a store called the Koshery. Let me see. So we went to the Koshery, which is a popular tourist spot for those who do like legit backpacking travel type things. They'll go into the streets, and this is one of the popular places that they'll go to. Nobody spoke English. Again, it was packed in there at, I think it was 11 or 12 o'clock at night. But they were really nice because they're used to like vloggers and bloggers going in here. And that's how me and my husband found it. We found some bloggers and they told us about this place.
You added more?
So that is chickpeas, is macaroni noodles, spaghetti noodles, rice, some sort of weird garlic seasoning, some red tomato paste sauce, and some onions mixed all together. Let's see. This is him. Okay.
Spicy light?
Yes.
Spicy? Spicy? Just a little. Spicy? Just a little spicy. It's not as spicy.
Yes.
It tastes really good.
Okay. Oh, I can do this. So that's the onion. Yeah. And those are the chickpeas. Yes. So the chickpeas were actually really flavorful. I really enjoyed that. But it was really, really heavy. So I didn't finish it. I was with 3 guys, my husband and our 2 friends, and they finished it. They really, really enjoyed it. What else was there? They had like a lot of hummus type foods there. So every meal came with like a little bowl of like, I think it's called tahini and the hummus looking one. Desserts were gross looking. So gross. By the end of the trip, one of my girlfriends was like, I just want to go home and have some cake.
Like, seriously.
Seriously. The one thing, I wish I could remember what it was called, and I wish I would have recorded it. Hold on. Let me see. That was actually at the Four Seasons, and it was probably the best meal I feel like I had there, which is kind of crazy. Here it is.
This is beef bacon, and this is traditional sausage. They said this is a potato wedge. It looks like a hash brown. And then this is Egyptian sausage.
That's what I said, eggplant.
So down here in the corner, I don't think I said it. Let me see if this one has it. That's falafel.
So this is falafel. Traditional waffle. This is full. So,
which that was beans, and then it had lemon juice and some sort of sesame oil and tomatoes in it. And so when I first learned about it, I thought it'd be like a refried bean thing, you know, like what I'm familiar with, but it was actually quite like sour and fruity, which that kind of threw me all the way off. But apparently the full is something that they eat every morning for breakfast. A lot of the Egyptians would say, oh, I'm sick of that. We eat that every day. And they eat it with their traditional like flat bread, and they just dip it in there with some fruit or something.
I'm gonna dip the bread in there. So it's a bean textured thing. And then I don't remember what the name of this pastry is.
That's good.
A potato wedge.
So that little pastry thing was the best sweet thing that I think I tasted. It was like flaky, almost like a tortilla-ish, but it had a lot of layers to it, and it was really soft, and it had some sort of like honey-like sauce on top, and another like dark brown, which I wasn't going to put on there. It wasn't chocolate, but it was almost the color of chocolate. And the guy was like, no, you have to have both sauces on it for it to be right. That was really good. Baklava is only. And I didn't see any baklava. I didn't see anywhere that we went. I wish I would have got a better video of, let's see.
How was the weather too?
Yeah. No, that's not it either. So that was kind of tough. This video actually is of us in the store, which if I can get it to play, it will be kind of cool for you all to see that too. But my computer's messing up because I'm doing too much. But so dessert wise, I wasn't a huge fan of the desserts that were there. Weather. So in Cairo, it wasn't as hot as I had imagined it. It was hot, like at home hot, just without the humidity. So to me, Arizona was more unbearable than Cairo. Yeah. In Luxor, though, there was about a 10-degree, yes, mostly vegan. Yes. So I said it was beef bacon because they didn't have pork bacon. Anything that we normally do with pork, they replaced it with beef. So sausages, things like that was always beef. And then it wasn't uncommon where we'd go somewhere and it'd be no meat at all. And so that koshery didn't have any meat in it. Yeah. So weather-wise, so in Luxor it was about 10 degrees hotter, which made a significant difference in when we did our tours. So the first 2 tours we did in Cairo, we went to the Egyptian pyramids and we did the camelback riding, and we went to something. We went to the temples, I think. I can't remember exactly what the other tour was, but it was tolerable. We kept going. We were sweating, but we got to the end and it was a long walk and it was a long day, and that was just it. In Luxor, on the other hand, when we went to the temples, by the time we finished those temples, we were laid out. So when we went to visit, it was actually the hot season, the hot season. So the tourist is down significantly. So part of the reason for the amount of hassling we got is because we were one of very few tourists in the area. And so they were gravitating to us because they weren't seeing as many as they normally do. So it was good in one way because when we would do our tours, it wasn't a lot of people on the tours. We could take our pictures pretty freely. It was, we could stand where we wanted to stand as long as we wanted to. And, it wasn't a big deal. But the downside to it was extremely terribly hot. We sweated more than we ever sweat. Some of the instructions we got was to drink even if you're not thirsty. And once somebody says that, the nurse in me is like, oh, okay, I get it. So, and not everybody we were with was in shape, so it was even more difficult for them as well. Let's see. So the tours. So we went to the Egyptian pyramids. It was absolutely fascinating how all of it, everything there was huge. Like there's nothing that can describe how big these monuments are, right? Like when you see the Washington Monument, for example, you're like, wow, that's big. That's one monument. When you see the amount of bigness that's around you. It's absolutely mystifying how any human being in that time frame could create the things that they've created. The two pyramids in Giza, the Pyramid of Giza, they use really big blocks. I forget how many tons each block was, but my arms could not reach the width of one block. One block was taller than me. Right. And then when we went to the step pyramids, which came after the original pyramids of Giza, they actually consolidated those pyramids and made them with smaller blocks, is what I understand. But still a huge piece of work. And, you know, not having any technology to support this, not having, I mean, to the amount of accuracy, the 51 degrees, the fact that it's facing the north, you know, all of these like intricacies and details that went into these pieces of work, you cannot absorb the amount of detail that existed that was before you in the amount of time that we were there. It's just impossible. I mean, we went into the pyramid and there were these crawl spaces throughout, like in and around to get to different tombs. When we went to the Valley of the Kings in Luxor, there were, I believe it was 60 something tombs there. And then she said that every day they're discovering a new tomb. And then apparently, because it's in the Sahara and, you know, the tombs are underground, and apparently it was a city on top of a city. So as they continue to like search, they find more like details and things of that nature on a daily basis, which is, I can't even put into words how like amazing that is. We went into King Tut's tomb, and he actually had the smaller tomb. Hold on, let me see if I can find that video. She said, oh, this is the smallest tomb. I said, well, that didn't seem that small because it was the first one we went into. I was like, it didn't seem that small. He had a little room. It was colors, everything. So this color is natural color made with, I believe they said it was turquoise and like red rock and like some other natural minerals. Let's see. So that's the mummy of King Tut. Remember, he was only 18 when he died. And so I was like drawn to his feet. They were so small. I was like, why is his feet so small? But it seemed as though the people, the Egyptians at that time seemed to have a smaller composition than, you know, us now. That's what it seemed like to me, at least. So the video that you just watched was to the left, like when you walked into the tomb, it was to the left and it had his coffin or his coffin there. His sarcophagus and everything was at the museum. And then to the right was the wall, and that's where his treasures were on under that wall. So whatever that writing was to protect all the treasures that was there. And then if you look down, there was a smaller little like gated area, which they said they open sometimes, but not often, where his treasures were in there. So another thing that was interesting in regard to King Tut, we went to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. So all his treasures now are located in that museum. And when we went to look at the exhibit, that was the only air-conditioned area in the entire museum. And you could not take any video or pictures in that area. So my first question was, why why not allow for this to be shown anywhere else? To me, it seemed like a marked reason why they would not allow you to record or to share this information. I'm like, what if I wanted to talk to my kids about this? You see what I'm saying? Like, what if I wanted to show my children this stuff? Like, they had his sarcophagus there, you know, because the sarcophagus and then the layer under it, so it was multiple layers that protected the mummy. I mean, he had jewels like these necklaces, and I might not be using the right language, but they had these necklaces, bracelets, rings, like just hair things and all types of stuff in there, all made out of gold, and you can't record or share any of it. And it's a protective measure. Which brings up another thing that was kind of different about the Egyptian government. They had specific places that was government authorized. So the government had control over certain things that you buy, and those were the places that you knew that it was quality materials. So then the government obviously had control over this museum. And I think this is one of the things that they leverage to bring tourists here. And I believe that that's why that stuff is so protected. They don't want it like on a YouTube or anything else. Most of the other stuff in the museum was pretty, you know, I was familiar with a lot of the stuff that was in the museum. You know, I didn't have a lot of context to it until I got an explanation, but that museum actually had over 60,000 pieces in it. And from what I understand, it actually will take you over a year to sit and read about and learn about each piece that's in that museum. Yeah. So let me see if I can find. So, and I can't explain everything that I saw, so I won't spend a lot of time showing you this stuff. Can you still see my pictures? Is it still sharing? Okay. So like this, for example. So that's the Egyptian $200 pound. And that guy, I don't remember his name, apparently is significant to them enough to be put on their pound. But the reason why I recorded it was because when he shone the light, you can see the reflection in his eyes. That's crazy that they had the technology to be able to figure that out with some mud and, you know, some dyes and things of that nature. Let me see. This is another mummy. I can't remember. Yeah, I think her name was Queen Yaya or something like that. But the thing that drew my attention was the fact that she still had hair. So this is the actual preserved mummy from whatever date this happened. It's a real mummy. So, I mean, they just had different artifacts like that throughout the museum. And again, just mystifying, fascinating, just, you know, so, and you can't find these things anywhere else. You'll find replicas like we have in African American Museum. No, it's a museum of art here in Maryland, and there is a Egyptian exhibit, and there are some things that we've seen in that exhibit, my husband and I, that we just realized are replicas because we saw them here in this museum, the real one, right? So, you know, I don't know if America has access to some of these things at all. So for that reason, I absolutely say that a trip to Egypt would be worth it just to be exposed to it. And if it wasn't, if it didn't take the amount of travel it took, I definitely, absolutely feel like I would have taken my children to go see it, just to give them some insight into like some of the details behind, you know, just world history, the source of our history. You know, I saw a picture of one of the hieroglyphs was a picture of what looked like an insect. And I asked about it and I said, well, you know, what is that? And she says it's a bee, but she used the Arabic language for bee. And she says, and I think that's how we came up with the name bee, because the prefix of that Arabic sound started with B, sounded like B. You see what I'm saying? And so English took B. So a lot of times we're told that American or English language comes from a Latin root, but how much of that is true? Like, it's not all of our language come from a Latin root. How much of it comes from, you know, Egyptian root? If they're, you know, the first civilization, if they had the ability to do some of the things that have been done in our history, what does that say about what we've shared, what has been shared with us as Americans, you know, as far as our American history, and has been cultivated, and, you know, and we all know America is known for their ability to steal and conquer. So, you know, how much of that has been taken from different cultures, and then specifically Egyptian history, knowing that they were the original innovators. So, any other questions?
No, that was good. That was good. That was a great insight too. That was great insight. And the food, I'm not like particular about certain foods, so you don't have to worry about me going to Egypt. And
You
thanks
know,
for that.
yeah, no problem. So another thing is, you know, with the food, so we ended up, oh, I didn't tell you this. So we ended up, a lot of us ended up with some diarrhea, and some of us got it worse than others.
Yeah.
Some of us got it worse than others. And so my husband and I didn't tell you about my friend. So I told you all about the hassling, right? So we ended up having a friend come out who said he was the cook to the hotel, and he showed us around, and he was like, you know, come to the spice shop with me, and we did, and he gave us some tea, and he was like, because we told him that our stomach had been bothering us. So he said he was a cook. So we ended up talking about how we didn't really feel that great. And so he was like, oh, well, you gotta come now and get this tea at this spice shop because it'll fix it. Let me tell y'all something. We was good. We was good, but it was one day we had the tea, and then we were good the rest of the trip. Yes. So we have some of that tea at the house now.
I was gonna say, I hope you brought it home.
I did. And then the other thing is, I have an eczema patch. I had an eczema patch for months, and I had planned on going to the doctor, but I had a hard time getting my doctor's appointment. So my doctor's appointment isn't until September, and I done had this patch since June. Let me tell y'all something. I got some Egyptian oil, some myrrh, and some another type of oil. I can't remember the name of it right now. I put that on that patch. It's gone. It's gone. Yeah. So, you know, there's so much value in just, and I didn't even scratch the surface. Like, I mean, just even see, like the papyrus store, we saw how they made alabaster, and, you know, how there are all these replicas here in America that we use, and, you know, it's not even a natural stone. You know, the oils, the food is all naturally organic. You know, I talked about the soda and how fresh it tasted. Even though it was soda, it was still very, very fresh. You could taste the sugar. It wasn't like the fructose that we taste here. So in a lot of ways, I mean, even McDonald's, we got mozzarella sticks at the McDonald's. It was real cheese that probably a goat made in the backyard or something like that. I don't know. But it was real cheese. And so, you know, in a lot of ways, you could tell it was real. And my American taste buds was like, you know, I kind of wish that, yeah, it isn't. I kind of wish that I had my plastic cheese because like it doesn't taste like the cheese that I'm familiar with. Like how ignorant is that to be sitting there saying, I wish I had plastic cheese because you know it's made out of plastic. But you know, but that's what I'm familiar with. So it just tastes like the milk was fresh milk. They like whole, you know, goat milk. And I tried to have some cereal that wasn't working. That wasn't good. Yeah, you're right. The black soap here isn't true black soap. So I brought a lot of oil home. Because you know, I do subscribe to some of the benefits of different oils. And I have had benefits through using them, but not to this extent. Not being able to rub my hands together, put it on my back, and wake up a week later and my whole eczema patch is gone. That has never happened with anything I've used. I use peppermint oil in my diffuser, and you know, with the kids and stuff. And although I think it does help some, I think it's so diluted and so watered down that you really don't get the benefits of it. And that's what they explain to us. They're like, you know, this is the raw organic oil, and we sell to different brand companies. And what they do is they take drops, they put it in their whatever the smells they're looking for in, and then they sell it to you for an exuberant price because it's a brand. You know, like they just can do that. So we brought home eucalyptus oil, we brought home the myrrh, we brought home incense. I mean, all of that stuff was I got myself a shirt that was Egyptian cotton. We watched them make that. It was, I mean, absolutely fascinating, you know. And one of the things, so the Egyptian oil, so I kind of covered it. So it was I got a eucalyptus and mint oil. I got some sort of flower. I gotta look at the paper. Some sort of flower oil, which is good for pain relief. Myrrh is good for inflammation and just general healing practices. And then the one that started with the H, which I can get back to you on what the name of that was. That's the one that was good for skin. And then we got two other types of oils that I can't remember much about because I didn't choose them at all. I got the ones that I wanted. So, and they had a whole list of them. Like you could probably spend thousands of dollars on all the different types of oils that they had available to you in that place. I mean, it was amazing. Yeah. Just the and part of the reason for like the amount of natural resources that they use is because they don't have a lot of money. So they're not they make it themselves. They, you know, everybody who had a business, who had a store, they would say, my family has owned this store for X amount of generations. The guy who owned the oil shop, he said, I've had this shop for X amount of generations. And I have the information. I can put the information, I can give you all the information. So, and he said that, no, the oil shop, he said he can't ship that nowhere. He was like, I'm under contract. I'm not allowed to ship it anywhere. But I did get access to like the jewelry shop, the spice shop. I think I tagged him on one of my posts. He can ship anywhere around the country. Around the world. And then it was a jewelry store that I didn't buy anything from, but I got his information as well. So I can give you all that information. You know, social media is not a big thing there, even though some of the places we went to did have maybe a social media page, but they don't really have a presence like that because they don't have Wi-Fi like we have Wi-Fi. Like as soon as I left the hotel, no Wi-Fi. If you went into any stores, no Wi-Fi. So like they don't have accessibility like we have accessibility here, which is something that we definitely take for granted here. And yeah, that was it. That was it.
That was fun. That was a fun journey. And
right?
the inking, you got that there as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. So when we went into I had to barter for it. So we went back and forth, and she gave me a little henna tattoo, and
Wow.
she wanted to charge me like 200 pounds, which is like 20, but I mean like 30, 60, 90. So that's 10. Yeah, it's about $20.
Wow.
And I was like, no, I'm not paying you that. Like, what? Like, no, I'll give you 20 pounds. And so she wouldn't do the big one on my hand because she didn't like the price that I gave.
Wow.
She ain't like that. She was mad at me. So yeah, they were funny. And some of them, like, I had a really good time. The guy who lied about the fact that he was our cook, we had such a good time with him. A blessing in a lot of ways. And it could have turned into a really bad situation, but it wasn't. Um, I mean, he took us around the town. He showed us around. He showed us where things were. So, even the money that we ended up giving him, that was over the price for the wine and stuff. To me, it was like, you know what? We really just paid for an impromptu tour guide, and I'm okay with that. So that was good. Any other questions? All right, I'm gonna stop recording here. Um, Hold on before I do that. So any updates as far as like businesses, any new accomplishments or anything like that that you guys want to share before we disconnect?
I'm going to a
Sure, I
terpene
will.
class.
Go ahead, Tamika. Go ahead first.
So tonight I am attending my first terpene class at the Josephine and Billy's. It's the first Black-owned female dispensary in LA. I'm just going to say it like that.
Okay.
So tonight I'm going to the class. I'm excited about it.
Ooh, congratulations. I want to hear about it.
Yes.
Sharetta, how about you? Was that you that was going to speak next?
Yes. I had an actual meeting with a young lady who is from Michigan, and she's in the process of creating her own app, which would be kind of like how Leaflet is,
Mm-hmm.
but it is more diverse and it has more information. And she was looking for a brand ambassador or an influencer. So she reached out to me and I was like, well, hey, I'm in the cannabis industry. Why not? But after we sat down and I asked her questions and we started to talk, she was like, no, that's not the job for you. She was like, I need you on my app because,
No, you're
What'd you
answering
say,
it.
Ashley?
No, I said go ahead. You're answering it.
Okay, yeah, she was like, I need you on there as a resource for people to come to you because of how you talk your intellect and what you know. And so, I was like, I used to go by, the cannabis nurse, but I said I no longer go by that name. So I go by endocannabinoid systems nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, and then we started to talk about advocacy and, the questions that she was kind of asking. So it come out that she wants me to be a part of a resource and a standard resource that not only can the people that come on there and explore the app can come to, but also other people and business owners can come to me as well. Because like she said, she was like, I don't meet any medical professionals that are in the cannabis industry that talk like you are about not only the plant medicine itself, but they're about the people, the patient. Yeah. And I was like, that's because I'm a nurse. All nurses that you meet, we are our patient's advocate first. Mm-hmm. So that's how we are. I was like, when people go and see and get the consultations or going for their to get their certification for their card, they're going to see the nurse first. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, even when they get their diagnosis, the first person they see, we write down everything, we ask all the questions, we do all the vitals, so they just look at everything and be like, oh, this is what it is. Yeah. So that was a great opportunity. And then this weekend coming up, we have our event coming. Okay. And so I'm excited about that. So far we are at almost 80 vendors. Oh wow. That's dope. So it's like been pushing. Yeah. Yeah, so we're almost at 80 vendors. So I've been pushing and pushing, advertising. I haven't been advertising as much on Instagram. We've been more on Facebook.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start doing my advertisement on Instagram and everything like that. Okay, Tamika, I'll be looking for her. And so I'm looking forward to that, and then some other opportunities that I have. And then I gave myself an official date that I'm going to launch my first podcast, which is going to be September the 15th.
Oh, yay.
So yes. So like when this is over with, I'll have like this weekend, then I have our family reunion coming, and I have everything already written out. It's just how I'm going to structure it and put it together, and then I'm going to go from there and record it and put it out there. So I just see like big things opening up, and doorways and everything. So we've been having some great opportunities, meeting some great people, whether they're in the cannabis industry. It's just great people in general that we've been meeting. So that's what I wanted to share.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm excited for you. I know, right? Vashima, what's going on with you?
Well, I made it through my first live session with hashtag.
I saw that. That's good.
That was exciting. And it did what I wanted to do. A lot of people learned from it, hearing from a patient perspective. I even got someone to start using RSO from watching that live for her rheumatoid arthritis. There's a friend of mine who suffers a lot, and I've been trying to get her to go into cannabis. And she's been doing cannabis, but she's been doing it the wrong way. But after hearing Billy's story, she like reevaluated how she was doing things and started taking it more serious as like a medical perspective and not recreationally, which I wanted her to do, was to ease off of it recreationally and start using it as a medicine.
Yes.
So so now I'm in the process of looking for like my second guest and try to keep the momentum going.
Okay.
But it was a lot of work because I really took it seriously. I try to make it as professional as possible. So a lot of people do like an open forum type of talk, but I wanted to be structured to make sure I got the point across. So I'm excited about that. I'm a little worried because the girls are back to school, so I have a hectic schedule, and I'm about to start another contract. So I'm trying to I hope I can still balance out everything, but so far it's so good.
Yeah. Make sure that you are blocking your time in a way where it's not overlapping and you don't burn yourself out. So and we'll talk more next week about like just consistency and what it looks like, because a lot of times people will talk about consistency and they'll be like, you have to do this once a day, or you have to do this once a week or whatever. You don't have to do something consistently on a weekly or daily schedule. It can be a bi-weekly schedule. It could be a monthly schedule, as long as you are consistently showing up at the time that you can commit to. And, we have to be realistic about the amount of things that we're committed to, our family, our friends, and things of that nature. And especially when you're first starting out and you're trying to figure out what you want things to look like, sometimes you need that reflection time in between each session. So just consider what that looks like for you before.
Yeah, that's why I didn't give a date for my next one. I said for everybody to look out for the date. But I do know I wanted to stick to Sundays because that's the day of the week I will not work on Sundays. Yeah. And I'm trying to utilize the time when the kids are in school as my time to create content and study and research things. So I'm trying to fine tune my schedule now, but I'm trying not to lock in or commit to anything until I have that down pat.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Congratulations on the forward moving progress. And I definitely understand the balancing act that is called being a mom. Adrian, how are you doing?
I'm good. And I know
Oh no.
I'm lab, so to say, trying to body butters, and I'm hoping to roll out my Bath and Body line by the beginning of next year.
Okay.
And then I actually am signing up for some pop-up shops for the holiday season. So
Wow, look at you. I love that. I love that. I'm excited for you. Do you already have your website and everything up? I don't remember if I ever saw it.
No, so I'm doing all of that right now. In
Okay.
fact, I didn't even have a business Instagram, so I just
Yeah, I saw that. You was like,
doing that.
I was like, okay, that's what's up. I love it. I love it. Forward progress is always something to celebrate. And if you have something that you're working towards, that means that you are going to make progress either way. So congratulations on that. So next week, we are going to talk more about like just social media presence, how to optimize your social media, how to get the most out of social media for your personal benefit. A lot of times when people talk social media, they talk about how you can get the most followers, you know, how can you go viral or whatever. Like that's usually the goal. But I believe that having strategy behind why and what you post is important, and knowing when you've achieved the goals that you're trying to achieve with social media have been achieved, like how you've achieved what you're trying to achieve with social media. So we'll talk a little bit about that next week. And so in the meantime, just go back into the library, take a listen to some of the advice that I have been given in the past. And then next week, we'll kind of go through and discuss how you can use that information for your own personal benefit and how to kind of critically think through what will work best for you in your business. All right. All right, ladies, thank you.